Today, I got a very different style of video for you guys. I'm not going to be ranking football kits. I'm not going to be putting out predictions. I'm not going to be talking about transfers. I'm going to be talking about one club, and that one club is Chelsea FC. The current date that I'm recording this video on is Tuesday, August 22nd, and a few days ago, over the weekend, Chelsea was versing West Ham at home, and they lost 3-1 to West Ham. That is honestly an embarrassing result. Over the past month, I've watched so many Premier League predictions with people putting Chelsea to finish in the top 5, in the top 4, maybe even in the top 3. And I was one of the only people that had them barely even finishing in the top 6, if even in the top 6. But after this game that they just finished playing over the weekend, I finally have proof of why I think this season Chelsea are going to struggle. The first thing I'm going to start off with is Chelsea's squad. And honestly, their squad is absolutely humongous. They have so many players in their squad. Even though they got rid of like 10 players so far this summer transfer window, they still have one of the biggest squads in the Premier League. That is absolutely insane. To make matters worse, the average age of Chelsea's squad is under 23 years old. That is the youngest squad in the Premier League and one of the youngest squads in the whole world. How can you have one of the biggest squads in the Premier League and the average age of your squad be under 23 years old? Most of these players have had very little, if not no, experience in the top tier leagues like the Premier League, let alone a big club like Chelsea FC. How are they supposed to make things work with that? How are they supposed to have chemistry together? All these young players coming from different countries, a lot of them barely know English. How are they supposed to play well together? It makes no sense to me. Staying on the topic of Chelsea's squad, if you go back exactly 1 year ago to the second match day in the 2022-23 season, their squad from last season to now has been completely revamped. There is only 2 players that are the same from last year's squad to this year's squad, and that is Thiago Silva and Raheem Sterling. Every single other player has changed. If you look at this graphic design by BR Football, in Chelsea's second matchday squad from last season, in net they had Edouard Mendy, in the defense they had James, Silva and Koulibaly, in the midfield they had Loftus-Cheek, Kante, Jorginho and Cucurella, and the attacking midfield they had Sterling and Mount, and in the striker position, they had Havertz. Now, if you take a look at Chelsea's second matchday squad for this season, you'll see in net, they have Sanchez. In the defense, they have Disasi, Silva, and Colwill. In the midfield, they have Gusto, Fernandez, Gallagher, and Chilwell. In the attacking midfield, they have Raheem Sterling and Chukwuemeka. And in the striker position, they have Nicholas Jackson. The only 2 players that remain the same from 1 year ago today is Raheem Sterling and Thiago Silva. Every single other player has changed. And I think that that is a bad thing because Chelsea's team is constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. Over the past year, they have brought in, 10, 15, 20 new players, and they've sold another 20 players. And how can you expect to have a fluent squad with good chemistry when you're constantly changing up the players every single month? It just doesn't make sense. Now, moving on from Chelsea's squad, let's take a deep dive into their game last weekend against West Ham where they lost 3-1. If you were to look at only the stats of this game and not the actual scoreline, you would think that Chelsea probably won this game at least 2-1, if not 3-2. But in reality, West Ham won 3-1. And I think that this mainly comes down to Chelsea not taking their opportunities and not making good decisions in the final third. If you watched both of Chelsea's games this season, their first game against Liverpool and now this game against West Ham, realistically they could have won both of them. Against Liverpool, they did draw 1-1, but Chelsea had a lot of chances. And to be fair, they were playing well for most of that game. And in this game against West Ham, in the first half, it's not like Chelsea had a bad half. They were making some good progressive plays. They were making some good counterattacks. Obviously, they did score the goal. The one thing that makes this loss against West Ham even worse is that West Ham is a very average team. They don't have a lot of great players. They have a few good qualities in the team, obviously, but they don't have a lot of great players. And they were down to 10 men in like the 60th minute. The defender, their best defender, I think his name is Adrev, got a red card. And still, Chelsea couldn't capitalize off that. They couldn't do anything to capitalize off the fact that West Ham were playing with 10 men, their average team, and Chelsea still lost 3-1. Honestly, that was an embarrassing defeat. But in the final third, sometimes I just feel like their team just lacks quality and it just lacks chemistry. Personally, I don't really think that this is an issue with Pochettino. I think that he handled both of these games fairly well. but I think it's more of an issue with the players because it doesn't really seem like they're on the same page. I feel like if Chelsea were to improve on these small little issues, that they could actually have a fairly decent season. But I felt the same last year. I felt that there were these small issues that they needed to improve, but they didn't throughout the whole season. And sadly, I mean, I'm not a Chelsea fan, but for the sake of Chelsea fans, sadly, it looks like this season is starting off in the same way. Very small issues that are easily fixable, but they're not doing anything to fix them. Quickly, I just want to take a step back from this game and look at Chelsea's transfers so far this summer. So they started off by signing Christopher Nkunku, then they signed Nicholas Jackson, Diego Moreira, Ishe Samuel Smith, Angelo Gabriel, Leslie Ugochukwu, Axel Disasi, Robert Sanchez, Moises Caicedo, and most recently, Romeo Lavia. All of these signings together equal up to 66 plus 37, let's say 100, 105, 120, 150, 175, 200, 330, about 400. All of these transfers combined that Chelsea made this summer equal up to about 400 million euros. This summer alone, 400 million euros. Most clubs, if not the whole league, hasn't spent 400 million euros in this summer, and Chelsea alone have spent that. And honestly, it doesn't seem like it has fixed their main issues, which again I said are very small things. That lack of chemistry, that lack of passion from the players, that lack of decision making in the final third. I think all of these small issues can be easily fixed without making all these big transfers, spending 400 million. Yet Chelsea still do this and they don't fix these issues. And I honestly feel like a lot of this comes down to their squad age, because like I already said, the average age of the Chelsea squad is 23 years old. There is literally no veterans in that team aside from Thiago Silva. He is like the only veteran pretty much in that team. So with all these young players that don't have a lot of experience, how are they all supposed to come together and play as one team and expect to try and finish in the top 4 when last season they finished in like 11th or 12th? It just doesn't make sense to me, and it's all too soon. And that's why I predicted Chelsea to finish in 6th place, if even 6th place, maybe even in 7th place, because I just don't think it's realistic. I don't think it's a realistic amount of time for them to go from finishing in the bottom half of the Premier League to finishing in the top 4. That's just not how football works. Especially, like I said, when you're making all these signings, you're changing all these things with the club. Things take time. And next season and the season after, I do think Chelsea will finally get back on track and get back to their title winning ways. I think they will be a top 3 Premier League team and one of the best teams in the world. But at the current moment, I just don't see Chelsea finishing in the top 3, in the top 4, in the top 5, let alone in the top 6. I think that's even going to be a struggle for them. And with how they played against West Ham, this is a perfect display of what I think might happen with Chelsea this season. They'll dominate games, they will play great in certain areas, but in the final third, with the lack of decision making, with the lack of chemistry in their team, with all these young players, I just don't think it's going to work out how the Chelsea fans think it's going to work out this season. And that's just my honest opinion. I'm not a Chelsea fan, I'm a Napoli fan, but over the last few games that I've watched from Chelsea, this is just personally what I see. But if you guys have any different opinions than what I was saying in this video, let me know in the comments down below, because I'm not a Chelsea fan. I've only seen a few of their games this season, but this is just personally what I've seen and what I've dissected from their team and what I think needs to change if they want to finish in the top 4 this season. And again, if you guys did enjoy this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you agreed with what I said in this video, let me know in the comments down below. But if you disagree with what I said and you think that there are some other problems with Chelsea, or you think they're going to finish in the top 3, again, let me know in the comments down below, and stay tuned for more videos.